Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something you might think of as a little, well, old-fashioned, chamber music. But trust me, its story is actually one of constant, surprising, and fascinating revolution. To really get what chamber music is all about, let's start with this perfect line from the writer Goethe. He called a string quartet four rational people conversing. And that's the key, right there. It's not a speech, it's not a lecture, it's a conversation. An intimate, dynamic back and forth between equals. And that's literally what it is. The name chamber music comes from the rooms it was first played in. The main thing to remember is that it's performed with just one person on each part. So unlike a giant orchestra, this is what you might call the music of friends. It's up close and personal. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with its origins as the music of friends. Then we'll follow it as it breaks out onto the public stage, see how the rules got completely shattered, and track its journey all the way into our digital world. Okay, first up, let's dive into where this whole musical conversation got started, which was inside the very exclusive world of the European aristocracy. You have to picture it. For over 100 years, this music wasn't for the general public, not at all. It was a private luxury. A composer, like Joseph Haydn, was basically on a prince's payroll, writing tunes for his wealthy boss and other skilled amateurs to play in their homes. The audience was tiny, it was exclusive, and often the people in the audience were also the performers. But that cozy, private little world, well, it couldn't last forever. A whole bunch of massive social and technological changes were coming, and they would force this intimate music out of the palace and right onto the public stage. This was its first great disruption. Three huge things happened all around the same time. First, a brand new, game-changing instrument arrived, the pianoforte. Then, the old system of rich patrons started to fall apart, meaning composers suddenly had to sell tickets to earn a living. And to top it off, the instruments themselves got an upgrade. Violins and cellos were built to be louder, more powerful, so they could fill these new, bigger concert halls. Now, this shift from the harpsichord to the pianoforte was a really big deal. The harpsichord plucks its strings, which makes a beautiful but kind of delicate and uniform sound. But the pianoforte, it strikes its strings with little hammers. This meant a performer could play soft, piano, or loud, forte, just by changing their touch. This opened up a whole new universe of dynamic and emotional expression, which was perfect for captivating a paying audience. So you've got a new audience that wants to be wowed, and you've got these more powerful instruments to write for. The whole scene was just ripe for a revolution. And that revolution was led by one man, Ludwig van Beethoven. Beethoven didn't just tweak chamber music, he completely supercharged it. This was not polite, entertaining background music anymore. He used small groups like the string quartet to express these incredibly profound, personal emotions, with shocking shifts from whisper quiet to explosively loud, and with harmonies that stretched what people even thought of as beautiful. He pushed performers to the absolute edge of their abilities. And this quote, it captures his attitude perfectly. When a violinist complained that a passage was just too hard to play, Beethoven's response was legendary. For him, the raw emotional power of the music was everything. If the instruments couldn't keep up, well, the players would just have to invent new ways to play them. So after Beethoven pretty much blew the doors off the whole genre, composers in the later 19th century started looking around for new sources of inspiration. And you know where they found it? Right in their own backyards. This was the great era of nationalism in music. That musical conversation started to develop all these different regional accents. Antonin Dvořák filled his music with the sounds of his native Bohemia. Béla Bartók in Hungary was one of the first ethnomusicologists. He actually traveled the countryside recording folk tunes that he then wove into his own compositions. And over in America, Charles Ives was quoting Protestant hymns. The conversation was going global by getting local. And this really changed the music's DNA. Bartók, for instance, used these asymmetrical rhythms he picked up directly from folk music. So instead of a steady 1, 2, 3, 4, you might get a pulse that feels uneven, like 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. To a classically trained musician, this felt weird and complicated, but to a folk musician, it felt as natural as breathing. It brought a totally new kind of physical energy into the concert hall. And that brings us to right now, to our present moment, and the second great disruption in chamber music's long history. Just like the Industrial Revolution changed everything in the 19th century, the digital revolution is transforming every single aspect of this tradition today. For almost 400 years, this was the technology: bound paper scores. I mean, it worked, but it was static. A clumsy page turn could be a disaster, and all your notes had to be scribbled in pencil. But today, the score is smart. Musicians are using tablets with these little Bluetooth foot pedals for seamless, hands-free page turns. Any marking one player makes on their part can instantly sync to everyone else's. And their entire library of music is right there on the cloud. It makes rehearsals faster and performances so much smoother. And for about 200 years, the performance itself was tied to a single physical space. To experience the music, you had to physically be in the room where it was happening. Well, not anymore. The modern stage is no longer just a stage, it's a network. You can have musicians in totally different cities performing together in perfect sync, thanks to ultra-low latency platforms. Listeners at home can use immersive audio to feel like they're sitting right in the middle of the quartet, and the concert hall itself might be a fully virtual reality space. And the innovation is everywhere you look. We're seeing hybrid electric acoustic instruments, live electronics integrated into performances, and even AI helping out with the composition process itself. From the instruments to the acoustics, technology is touching absolutely everything. So, after this incredible journey from private palaces to public stages to networked pixels, what's the one thing that's actually endured through all of this insane change? The contrast is just staggering, right? The venue went from a palace chamber to a VR stage. The players went from amateur aristocrats to global professionals. The score went from a handwritten manuscript to a cloud-synced iPad. But that core idea, that fundamental concept that Goethe described, hasn't changed at all. It is still and has always been the music of friends. So whether it's happening in one room or across continents connected by fiber optics, that intimate conversation continues. And after 400 years of constant evolution, we're left with one very exciting question to think about.